Peter. How are you?
Hello, Enrique. Very good. Thank you. How are you going in this beautiful day? I hope you have a beautiful day outside.
Well, honestly, I cannot complain, but we have some clouds today here, so not the most cheerful day to to be on. But it's fine. It's fine.
Okay, very good.
We need
So,
some rain though, so I hope the clouds bring some rain. Otherwise, it's just
okay.
taking away from the sun.
Today for me is a pretty sunny, good day. Good day. We have the great people, great person today to talk to. So I hope we will just, whatever the weather will be, we'll just make it brilliant for our viewers. And guys, don't forget, we are always just asking you just please to subscribe, but we still don't have the image. So I think let's just, if Enrique can just put the image on the top, it will be great to guys that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have the very small, but it's just going steadily up 10, 20 per week. So that's good. On the LinkedIn, we are even more phenomenal in terms of the number of the subscriptions. So thank you for that. Really appreciate it. And if you wish to be part of it, just join and come and help. If you wish to join us, we need always help for editing, for everything. So no further ado, no more publicity on our about ourselves. Let's jump into the topic,
So
Enrique.
perfect. So Andrew, Victory, we're gonna introduce you to the BIM Cafe. Welcome, Andrew. Hello.
Hi, thanks for the invite. Appreciate it. It's interesting listening to yourselves talk about the weather. It's always a hot topic in the UK, the weather, and rain is not something that we miss too much here. That's for sure.
That's very good. Now the Paris today it's sunny. I think Malaga it's good. Next week will be Zurich, I think, for me. So we will see how it will be. This was raining last week, so let's see.
Lovely.
Great to have you with us.
No, thanks for the invite. It's great to talk with you.
Perfect, Andrew. Welcome to the BIM Cafe. I hope you enjoy the next conversation. And for that, we're gonna just pull up the interview slides, sort of preparation, and Andrew will go through his presentation on the interview. And mainly today, we're gonna discuss about BIM, of course, but strategy in general for the implementation of new technology. To draft it in a big words headlines, I think will be something like that. And I like this last point, talking about the future, defining BIM on what's next, because this is mainly where Andrew's role is being focused on recently. So first of all, as I said, Andrew, please take the floor, introduce yourself to our viewers, and tell us who you are, what you do, and so on.
Sure, happy to. So my name's Andrew Victory. I'm a technical director within Arcadis from a global perspective. So I sit within the global entity rather than the country specific. My job title, I've had a few different job titles through time, but the Global BIM and Design Automation Director is the one at the moment. And so really my role is I'm responsible for BIM from a global perspective for Arcadis. And so I'm the kind of person that speaks to all the countries around what their country-specific BIM roadmaps might look like. And then from a global side, try to see how we can align everything, work together, what I see as in relation to the strategy that we should kind of put forward. And obviously we align that obviously to the key themes that are happening in the industry as a whole. And so we try to accelerate some of those roadmaps from the countries, see what they're doing, see what their plans are, see how we can relate it to the core themes that are emerging for AEC. And then from a global side, see what we can do collaboratively as a group and move from there. Backgrounds, quite a few years in BIM, a little bit longer in the tooth, as we say in England to some. Kind of really got into it in 2005, 2006. That's when I started to really want to go into this line of work and move in that space. But staying within AEC and architecture and design and engineering now as well. And really, that's me. So nice to meet you.
Great to have you, Asta. Very good career. So just it's BIM strategy. What is exactly this thing? What's behind us? These big words here. Just in practice, what is it?
Yeah, I mean, so I've been at Arcadis Core for 5 years, 5.5 years. And I know we're going to cover BIM and how it's evolved through the years. But the strategy really for those first 3 years that we were here was that globally they decided they wanted to really scale our capabilities around BIM and really put some definitions to that level of maturity that we can get to for BIM. And so really, when we talk about the strategies, okay, we see all this themes and all these hot topics and all these things that the countries are keen to do. And it's always around, for me, it's always around people, process, technology. I know that's quite an old school strategy concept. I know it's still used in many change management places, but really it's what do we need to do for our people and address for our people in terms of their skills, in terms of roles and skills that are growing and which ones maybe are reducing or changing. And that can be at managers, coordinators, modelers. It could be at leads level, or it could be, in relation to data and information management and all that. So that's the people piece. Processes is obviously around workflows, really. What are we trying to do around our workflows? How are we getting more effective on how we work? And then the final one is obviously technologies, and the strategy around, we know what technologies are emerging. We know what technologies are already being used within the industry and on our projects. What's our plans on how we progress that and accelerate that? And the strategy really has to come around all three of those topics, really, and how they all have an influence on each other. So it's really working with those three core themes always. And I know it's a long in the tooth kind of strategy of change, people, process, technology, but really it's that. It's, the only thing I was going to mention as well is that it's a funny one because, yes, typically people that do these kind of roles have come from the projects and have come from project delivery of BIM. But really, after a while, it moves much more into a change management role, really, and kind of people role, really. And that's a different focus to the tools itself.
This is sort of the normal evolution, right? Like coming, working some projects, start to get used to the tools, see what are the mistakes and the things we can improve on site, and then you move into the managing role.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something, Andrew. You mentioned a lot of time the words strategy and implementation for different tools and technology and guidance from the global perspective for Arcadis in this case. Do you guys also, or you in your position, do you also define the strategy, or are you in charge of go and implement it country by country, or explain to the people who will do the implementation on their country?
So a bit of both. So realistically, I would argue that we're a little bit like a matrix organization. So, Arcadis is a large company with 34,000 staff. My specific area of focus is around a third of that, which is the design and engineering aspects of the business. And really on that side, it's, the money and the revenues and the projects, the profits, I should say, come in the countries and are owned by the countries, really. So, from a global side, we don't want to at all stop the good work that's going on there. And obviously the good things that are happening for our clients, it's quite the opposite. From a global side, everyone thinks when I'm in global roles and, working for corporate headquarters group, that it's a top-down mandates on things. And that really has to be something that's balanced. There's some themes and some core areas that from a global perspective, we put as priorities and importance to the countries to say, look, these are things that we would like to, and we need to move towards, and we measure it and we kind of flag up to their leadership in countries as to where there's maybe resistance or maturity that is good on these areas. But the other side is, they have autonomy and control over what's important for their countries, and they know exactly what is more important and valuable in some ways than me, because they're on the ground, they're talking to their local clients. The majority of our clients at Arcadis are local clients, our country-specific clients. We have a whole portfolio of global clients, what we call global key clients, but the majority of the work and the majority of the projects, and it's around 40,000 a year that Arcadis does, is by the countries. So it really needs to be a collaboration, and that's kind of where I feel my role has been advantageous to this, because I try to be supportive and sometimes challenge them about what they're doing. But really, it's then a lot of knowledge sharing and a lot of connecting the dots and a lot of making everyone aware of what other countries are doing for each other. And that's down to me. That's obviously.
So when you sorry for cutting you off, but one of the things you're talking about the countries and the so there's the country dependent, etc., etc. But when we look at the couple of the interviews with our guests, manufacturing business, usually this is not really country specific. So just if you look at the very specific things for the construction industry, you have the one company who is specialized, and it can be in Italy, it can be in etc. So how you combine these things, because you're really focusing on the country, and we know that the countries has the different norms, regulations, etc. How you will just skip with this kind of problematics? What are your advice for the guys who just need to go through the cross border? They cannot still in Paris or in Malaga or in London, whatever, Manchester. You just need to go outside a little bit to see others. What's your advice?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, there's a few things there, right? So, so we have country BIM leads per global business area, let's say, which with three business areas, well, four really, GBA intelligence included. But it's mobility, places, resilience. That's the kind of core of our bread and butter work, and then the GBA intelligence. So as well as having these country-specific ones, BIM leads, we also have some that are client-specific. And they do work across the multinational with the different projects in different countries. Because as you said, for some of our manufacturing clients, some of our industrial buildings clients, they are multinational, of course. And so for that, we try to appoint or look to appoint often a BIM lead that represents all those projects that are in the pipeline for that specific client. And then you try to create some standardization and some kind of standard operating procedures and standard ways of working across that and capabilities around that. I don't think it's one or the other. There's often a little bit of both happening in that area. But again, the other way we connect people has been a lot of pre-COVID. We did a lot of face-to-face meetings, and a lot of the leads in countries would generally meet every quarter. As countries, and each talk and try to build a trust around each other, so that they, as projects do emerge and pursuits and bids and projects are delivered, they are sharing how best practice are, what projects they're on, and the clients they're working with. You'd be surprised that there are times that people don't even know in different countries they're working for the same clients from a BIM side. So it takes a lot of network sharing, and it's a lot of face-to-face, and the investment has to come to putting these people in internal conferences. We often do maybe technology conferences that exist, and we bolt on a pre-event day or a post-event day, which is internal only for Arcadis. And on those ones, it's the key of how we build that relationship.
Interesting point of view, because for me the BIM should really just connect and just bring the barriers down and the silo down. But interesting point of view, an interesting observation. I think that's great, Andrew. Thank you.
All right.
Perfect. So one last question from my side. Sorry, Andrew, because it's very interesting the position you hold from any perspective. I want to ask you if you see, or how do you guys react, because when you have such a big company like Arcadis and the desperation you have in global countries that have their own clients and so on, they can see, these people from global are coming here to us to tell us what to do. They have reticencies, to listen or apply to those changes. So how do you guys manage that when you need to go on board to one country like, it's Spain or the UK or whatever, and tell them what to do or what is the guidance?
Okay, so there's a few things there. One thing is you've got to go and visit them face to face. You've got to, if you're trying to do these things on a webinar and trying to build that trust, it's really quite difficult. So you need to go and speak to them and have a chance to kind of talk over more than an hour session, and even if you try to do full day webinars, it's not gonna have the same impact that you have when you put them together. The other thing is you've got to make them feel that what you're doing is going to be beneficial to them, and be very transparent about maybe why what they're doing currently isn't being efficient for how the company wants to go. And so really, and you have to kind of talk about other countries often and say, look, these country X, Y, and Z is doing this, and it's proved really effective. We feel that this is something that you should consider, and go forward. Now, if the resistance is high and there's valid reasons, I can understand that, and then we have to kind of approach it differently. People don't like to have projects where they need to make an initial investment of change that they're not going to maybe see the return on that for project one. So we have to kind of give them that guidance, that support, and also give them some experience from other countries and get those people to talk to them to say, look, it didn't work for project one, was difficult, it didn't go well, but by project 2 and 3, things are starting to really go better, and then the management of the projects from a BIM perspective is getting much more effective and much easier. And what I will then say to them is, don't just take my word for it. Here's another person that's going to explain it to you and articulate that issue. And it will take some support from my side, and it will take continuing to keep that conversation going even after you've left and after they've left, and making them feel that they are part of a process where we all want to go as a company. But we do let them do a lot. We do have to make sure that they feel that they can do things that are right for them as well. So it really has to be a balance.
Yeah.
It's more like an
They need to
80-20.
feel also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good notes here to take for work and
Okay.
people
Oh,
work with as
thanks.
well. Thank you for saying that, Andrew. So the presentation, I think, is done. We already know what is your roles and task over at Cadiz in the headquarters. So let's jump into the first topic, first part of the interviews of the implementation. This is something I picked from our first conversation. I know you remember where you shared to me, like during your time working on, you move from 25% of being project load up to 82. I don't know if the numbers are exactly correct, but it's something that it takes on my mind. I say, well, this is very good things to show and say, look, this is an advance in progress with work, right? So the first thing is, from a global perspective, how do you set on a strategy to make this happen? How is the road to make it happen?
Okay, so yeah, when I spoke briefly earlier about my first 3 years at Arcadis, I was hired specifically on the BIM development side of things to get that target number from a 25 up to an 82. Because one of the strategic priorities the CEO had presented to the shareholders and the investors in Arcadis was, one of the priorities is to get to a BIM level 2, what we call BIM level 2, which is not, to make very clear, which there was many discussions on this everywhere. We're not talking UK BIM level 2 specifically, okay? We're talking our own kind of version of that level of maturity, but it did rely on, are we doing things in a multidisciplinary way? Are we working within federated platforms? And are we documenting how we're going to work on our projects and having an information management process addressed and execution addressed? So, when I joined, when that priorities was set, then obviously there was a set of people that could be put around that. It was part of a broader digital strategy, which took me a while to get my head around exactly, but it was around the concepts of the 3 horizons, which I think now has become quite common for many companies. But for me, it took me a little bit to get my head around the differences there. And really, it's Horizon 1, which is what do we need to do today to prepare for tomorrow, in terms of digitizing our ways of working, building that foundation of working in a more emerging way. The 1 to 5 year strategy, which is Horizon 2, which is, okay, how do we work with startups? Where do we need to be in terms of furthering our BIM and digital appetite and digital value creation opportunities? And then finally, in that 7 year strategy was, okay, what do we need to do around incubation of ideas to build them and give new services to our clients in the longer term, so 7 years. Now, people always think that when I say or not always, but often people have thought, and I did myself to some extent, when we're talking 1 to 3 year strategy, 1 to 5 year, 1 to 7, that you're doing one after the other. But the reality is, no, you're doing all 3 at the same time. And so there is overlaps, and there is times that you're bumping into each other through the different horizons. But BIM was at Horizon 1, 100%. It was a Horizon 1 plan, build that foundation. So it had a 1 to 3 year plan. So to get from 25 to what we called as our vision of where we wanted to get to, was called 100% BIM. So, and obviously there was loads of questions around, what does 100%, do we have to get to 100%? When will we get to 100% in each country and things like that? From my side, it was more, that's the target. That's where we're aiming. We need to work with the countries to work out how we're going to get incrementally to that target within the strategy cycle. So yeah, basically we would work with the countries to first, and this is the hard bit sometimes, is you're setting those plans up with them before they've actually done it. So obviously, there are moments of reflection when you're like, gosh, we really gave ourselves quite a tight deadline there to get to 50% or 75%. And so you work with them to go, okay, well, where can we be if I watch what are our timelines? It can't be just we can't get there. It has to be, okay, we can't get there. What is the timeline then to get there? Now, you know, my experience for those years when we did that was to get to 25% was easy. You know, that first bit was really nice and easy because a lot of countries had projects that they were already doing in BIM, you know, especially in infrastructure projects and some of the places sections of the business. And some countries were obviously far more mature than others.
Yep.
So, you know, some of them were way past 25 and some of them were like still trying to work out is BIM the right thing for them. So, yeah, we basically had to work through each individual country's 25%, 50%, and then we would report back to leadership if we're on target, if we're not on target for each individual country. Those country leadership groups would be sent reports to articulate where they are on that, and you know, and are they on target, not target? Is there a challenge that we might not be on target? And then we have to, you know, we had to be very sensitive in the way we articulate it, but we had to be very transparent, you know, and say some of them can't get there because of issues maybe to do with more people needed on the ground, or more training is needed, or you know, that we haven't yet got the full buy-in as to why this is an important thing to do. And the most important thing with these things I found, and I'd be hopeful that all our competitors are in the same place now with this, is you really need that executive sponsorship. You need that executive level support so that although, you know, I may be at director level, there are many layers above me, and when, you know, that can override the things I might say. So we need to be able to have a voice or a way to communicate to the top some of the challenges so that they can kind of work out what the challenges could be working back down the chain.
Yeah.
So that's a change management. You know, I think I mentioned it briefly earlier. I think one of the startling things from me was, for me was I was hands-on with BIM, BIM manager on many projects before I joined Arcadis, and I have very, very limited access or usage of tools now. The role really changed to just talking about BIM, articulating what BIM is, and really understanding what the challenges and the good things, that the positives and benefits that can happen from BIM.
Yeah,
really.
Sorry, just I think this is great to hear. I know, but one of the things which you were just repeating most of the time was really just as in summary with this, the executive sponsorship, and the way that, you know, it's really create the wave of change, and it's really something which is the most important. I think without this executive sponsorship and just somebody who just said that's our KPIs, that's our measures, which we would like to put it, I think the all transformation which you led was not really achievable. So I think that's really one of the things which was important. The second thing what I heard, you know, and just I'm not sure if I'm rephrasing it correctly, but you also just showed that you tell us that, you know, the countries were giving, so the different organization was giving at a different speed, and that was not really like pushing them towards the reaching to the same speed. It's just more reaching the same level, but the timeline was different, depends on maturity of the country's organizations, right?
Absolutely, Peter. I mean, you know, the thing with that, Peter, is so some countries have a very large D&E revenues and D&E project amount of projects, whereas some of them are small countries or small bits of design and engineering. So it's maybe a little bit easier. You know, it wouldn't, for some of them, it doesn't take too many projects to be able to get that number to change quite rapidly. For other countries, it's like moving a tanker. You know, you are asking, even a few incremental projects is not going to be enough to get those targets up to where you want. So it was, as we say in England, horses for courses, I'm afraid, for that one.
Yeah, it's very good, very fair, very fair. You know, I like that we don't need to go with the same speed. I think this is something which with Enrique we see with some of our clients. You know, it's even within the one company, you can have a different departments which have a different appetite and different speed. I think but the management is the important part of the having the support. And also you mentioned the both directional communication. It cannot be like, your boss telling you, do the BIM tomorrow, bye, and then it's not listening. It's just need to do the BIM tomorrow and how I can help you to make it work. Yeah, very good feedback which you got from you. Thank you.
Amen to all that. Yeah, I agree as well. And it's important to add up what Andrew and Peter just said about the countries and the speed. That I think also you set the same goal for everyone. Of course, some people will reach it earlier, other people won't get there, other people will reach it with more time. But adapting those goals, it will also help them to encourage those countries to keep also have motivation on the road of innovation. Otherwise, they say, you know what, we're never going to get to 85%. So why I want to work my ass to get that to 40 if for them it's not enough? But you bring the values for them. Okay, you get a 40% on a country, it's going to be okay. So they will have motivation to go there, and then while they're there, you can set for 60, right? So have the motivation for the people there locally is also important.
Absolutely. I mean, and as I mentioned, transparency is really key from my side. For the work I do, I have to be transparent to the BIM leads in countries. So I will articulate to them what I've presented and what I've said to leadership on their behalf, or my feedback from them. And so it's sometimes great and sometimes constructive, let's say, about how to progress. But they were all aware of each other's percentages as well. They were all very aware of each other. So that was an open kind of in meetings discussion of, look, this quarter, this is where each of you is.
So let me try just to handle it from a different angle, and it will be kind of like a recruitment HR question. So sorry for that.
Okay. I'll try.
So if you think about all of this strategy and building in 25 to 80, whatever, that's a very good path. What are the things which you really failed, and what was the things which you will just never do it again? And because I think that's really the most important for our viewers to learn from you. Not only from the good metrics, but the things which really screwed. Excuse my French.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I'll try and answer that. What was hard? I'll tell you one thing that always still is hard. And it's one that ends up being from a personal level you just have to get used to, is, I mentioned that I'm since 2006 doing BIM, let's say, and articulating the benefits and trying to really champion BIM from a global perspective. The challenge, the thing that sometimes is a little bit hard to swallow, but you have to keep doing it, is sometimes you still, even now in these last couple of years, I still get asked, why do we need to do BIM? What is it we need to do? Is it really something we need to think about? And that's hard, because you think, my God, we've gone for many years. There's plenty. I joined BIM when there wasn't many BIM jobs out there, let's say, or they were classified as BIM jobs. And, it's now considered and understood and recognized as a capability and a skill and a role for people in general. And yeah, that bit sometimes still thinks, gosh, we have a long, long way to go. There's the other thing I found difficult and had to make sure that I found a way is, and I'm sure you're both, heavily in the BIM side as well. So you'll understand when I say this, is you get maybe groups or without pointing at fingers, you get feedback sometimes that project is too special, project is too late, project is too small, project is too big. We are different, and you have to kind of try to unpick that to really understand why is it they think it's different, and then ideally have a very good set of case studies to present why there's other examples where it's worked. I think there's two other things on that, right? There was Autodesk, for example, did a webinar lately to their investors, and they articulated that the penetration of BIM globally across the whole industry, or across the whole, I'm imagining they meant architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, was only at 16%, 16% globally. And I thought, my gosh, if we're only at 16% globally, then we have a hell of a long way still to go to be where it becomes business as usual. and maybe at that point, it might be called something else. Who knows if it ends up becoming something else at that point.
Just I will be sorry, just Andrew, again cutting you off.
Yeah.
Just I will just challenge the 16%, to be very honest, because that's one of the part which some of the very noble software houses try to build a scarcity and say, you need to go because it's only 16, and building is scaring people is always making the sell more, unfortunately. So yeah, I hear what they said. I think we are still on the path of growing, and I think this is, for me, it's for sure we are very late, but I'm just comparing to the others. I think we are very good. I like the point though when you said we are different. It's just that, yes, you're right. We are hearing this from everybody, even from some of the people who we just discussing, interviewing. Oh, but we are different. Yes, I know that. I understood this. For sure, but you're still breathing, and we're still walking, and we still have the two legs, two hands, and the one head. So yeah, I hear you. And the projects are always very special, and I know this one, but we are still, I think, have a tendency to overcomplicating stuff. So I think you really bullseye this one. So that's great. Yeah, thank you.
Nice.
And that's a good point, because we're talking about the speed of the implementation of BIM in general, and I think it links very well with our next topic, which I will pull up on the screen, which is redefining BIM.
Yeah.
In a way that I see that BIM has, Andrew said, started 2005 or 6, and even some people before, but they still have some people with doubts. People who have tried it, they say, okay, it didn't give me anything. People are still scared of trying it, or God knows why, but it's in a process of redefining. And this first sentence there, I say finding BIMs and data managers meeting point. Also, I pick from our conversation, if I'm mistaken, Andrew, because I think it's where we are going in the way of redefining BIM as a information management itself. So it got less scary. It can get more effective. People can adopt it quicker. And also it relates with the second point, and I was also to ask you about that, the automation of design processes, which is also part of your role, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think, in some countries, BIM has been, in the last couple of years, in a point of inflection, a point of just trying to reflect on where is it going and what's happening with it. And there's been a whole array of things that have changed from a people's side. This whole information management and data management is quite large as well. Arcadis, is being a large company, means that you see some quite different skills that sometimes look a little bit similar to BIM. Like we have a very large GIS community, for example. So geographical information systems, and we also have outside of D&E, there's a huge, and even to some extent internally to design and engineering, there's a huge data management community as well. And so there'll be times that there's a sharing of ideas and sharing of case studies and stuff, and really there's a gray area between BIM, GIS, and some of the data projects as well. And it's meant that there are times that we're not sure where the line is specific to BIM and specific to GIS and specific to data. And so adds to all that, obviously, we now have information management, as a role. And I know, for example, the UK changed the definition of BIM and information management towards that and in that direction of things. I think I don't know where we will end up with some of that. I think the thing that I would argue is that, and maybe I have a bias to this, and maybe I'll be proven wrong in years to come. I do feel the word BIM isn't going away in any time soon. And to touch briefly on what we spoke about earlier, where we said that we're still having the same topic, same conversations, and people say they're still asking the why of BIM. I think it's too early for us to say BIM is, as a terminology, going to disappear and we're going to come up with the latest new terminology, because we'll lose some of the momentum and some of the groups that have only just started to recognize that this is something that's not going away, and it's something that they need to consider when it comes to project delivery, and especially from a contractual side. So I think it's really difficult to know where it's going to go, because you do have the you have reality capture happening, which is having an impact on modelers, and and the BIM modeling how BIM modeling is undertaken and the task of the BIM modeler. We have a lot happening around data validation technologies emerging. What's the impact that's going to have on BIM coordinators and BIM managers? And is it going to affect them in a positive way where it means they're more effective with the role they're doing? Or is it going to mean that they can do more projects under the same timeline that they would do one project? Or are we talking about that the technology goes so far that there's a far less need for BIM managers, let's say, in that sense? And I think that's something we don't really know where it's going to go. It still is requiring, the automation is still requiring some level of endorsement and certification from people to say the data is ready to send out the door. Now, maybe the day will come when the machine will self-approve and say the data is ready to send out the door, but we're not there yet. So I think with that, BIM and BIM skills and BIM capabilities are far from over. I would say we still have them for a great deal more. And Peter, it's funny when you mentioned about the 16% comment I made about that you're not the only one that has said that, actually. There's a few people challenging, are we where we think we are, in terms of that. And so I think, well, if we're talking about BIM evolving, then, and we're at, in some ways 16%, well, it's very difficult then to know, gosh, when we do get to 70% or 80%, what are we talking about? What is it going to be?
Yeah, no, after 1 year and a half right now, when we're running the BIM Cafe with Enrique, I'm just my position, and because I was learning on the beginning, so what the BIM is, etc. I think the BIM is really right now the only one key element, one of the elements of the bigger puzzle, and the BIM is only just one of the methods and the tools to reach the nirvana state, what I call it, of the digitization or of the whole construction industry. So this is one part of the tool. So I think that's the reason why I'm challenging always the 1620. Is this company or that company, etc.
Yep.
I really don't know, and I think so. We know that the industry will need to grow independently in a very open model. That's what my belief is, because we see this coming really for the parts of the construction industry when they open it. It grows quickly. It's just get automated, gets digitized, etc. For the parts of the industry when you still, or the part of the construction industry when you still keep the very close eye on everything was going, standards, etc. Again, standards are good, but not for just keeping the businesses. It's more, for me, it's like a technocrats. It's like just the guys who just try to build the technology for technology, not for the better use. So I think but it will take some time. It will go away. I'm sorry. Oh my God. It's my point of view about BIM.
Yeah. There is some that definitely think it will just go away, but I don't think the problem will go away. The challenges, the complexity is just something that will fix itself. But I think we're far from that. And I think if other industries have shown us anything, it's that it doesn't go away. It just gets more complicated and more complex to address and to keep on top of.
Yeah, and it's also just, sorry, Enrique, one other comment, and I think I think I agree with my favorite Pareto exercise is just, I think 80% we can just streamline and optimize it. We will still have this 20%, which will create the biggest mess, etc. I know that's not really the Pareto how it works, but 80-20 works very well. But I think this around 20%, which will stay again different and stay and not standardized, etc. And it's normal for me. That's fine. But it's not questioning the whole digitization and BIMization of the industry going forward.
Yeah, that's why I also like to talk about redefining BIM, no like overwriting or removing and starting from zero, because you miss also you are kind of wasting all the years of the technology development in the construction industry. We cannot afford that. We are already born late in a way.
Absolutely.
Just to tie it up with these things and talking about some latest innovation, I want to ask you, Andrew, about the last point, as I said, automation initiatives which are on the sign. Recently I saw some text to BIM AI tools on the market to build me a two-story build and this model to the model, right? Exactly, it's pretty cool, right? So what kind of architectural design and automation do you guys have in mind? Have you experienced? You think they can hit the market, or what is your view on this?
Yeah, I mean, automation, so design automation definitely in the last couple of years was something that, and you can tell from my job title that it was something that changed in terms of the area of focus that I recommended we need to kind of address. And really, there's two sides to that, really. And I do kind of I do relate to this, and I do resonate that with it, and I do kind of work with this and follow a fair few blogs that talk about the computational design versus generative design, and where the two kind of concept of automation of the design process are going. Large swathes of computational design for me, and then some of the skills and capabilities we're trying to build internally, are to do with keeping projects having available automations for short-term solutions, short-term efforts, short-term tasks that we know that can be done, and scaling those automations so that everyone's using it. The other side is the generative design and the productization as well. So, building those, one of the generative design itself is very, there's some great blogs out there on LinkedIn at the moment that are thought-provoking in terms of, is generative design really going to give us the best designs and the best approach to design? And then there's aspects of it saying, if anything is going to too much homogenize and too much control what the output looks like, and we'll end up with buildings that look, or a built environment around us that looks like the automation machine had said it should look like, and it doesn't really push the boundaries of where creative thinking for humans can be, and where people and architects should be. I love those conversations because I do think that there is a distinction between both. I mean, we have so many things happening around, 3D printing, additive manufacturing, all sorts of modular construction, all these areas that are emerging, that I think are meaning that there is no one way that this is all going to go. I think it's all, as one around modular construction and the industrialization of Lego type design of buildings grows, you've got another kind of avenue or channel which is driving at materials that change based on their location and based on the impacts of the environment around them, which is completely unpicking some of that side of things. So the automation side, yeah, I mean, I'm personally doing it in the same way as the change management process around, these are low-hanging fruit of automations that we know that some of our BIM leads, some of our BIM managers, some of our design automation leads need to consider and need to be aware of that, what's available to them. It really is, though, having an impact in terms of what skill sets we think those people will have, because we are very much touching what we call citizen development, which is what should be built by our staff on projects as in a hobby way or in a creative way, and what should be much more controlled and organized and led and supported by technology parts of the business. And really that balance of what do we let people do in terms of creative automation compared to what do we let, we need some sort of technology side to kind of support us on the guardrails, is the exciting imbalance that we're trying to work out. There is some bits that definitely are scalable, and it's difficult. The obvious ones I use as an example that are things like as editing the name of something across multiple hundreds of drawings, those sorts of scripts, or batch exporting to a PDF system, or those are kind of low-hanging fruits that really all projects should be kind of using these kind of approaches for. But others not so much, where we are doing this generative design, this computational design approach, which is done via a platform, that's a different nature and a different skill set. And even the coding languages are really having an impact of what do we consider, the C# versus what was Visual Basic back then, and versus the Dynamos of the world and the generative components of the world. Always have a different kind of where they process of project delivery, and have to question, even for the managers and BIM coordinators, well, what sort of those skills do they have available to them and be able to do themselves, compared to what should be a separate capability that exists within the business, really. So yeah, it's an exciting time. I feel like automation and design automation in particular we're in. I feel like I'm back in 2006, 2007 for that stuff. I feel like it's going to take us many years to be where it's formalized and understood. That said, there's some really fantastic conferences around computational design that I follow and I've been to, and it's really exciting where this will go. What the impact on the BIM people is, it's still in question because of the BIM uses and all the different types of BIM that can happen. I think there's different bits that are going to be impacted compared to others.
Yeah, for sure. Very good. Very nice summary. I like it. Thank you, Andrew, for sharing.
I think the human will always have a place for what is called our critical eye, right? Like I'm not against letting machines or AI to generate models, but I will always put a human there to put his eye and question.
Right.
But they need to understand all the process and everything, but we need that.
Yeah, just this is the big debate, It's just the funny thing which I always found with this, guys, the people telling me that, the models can learn, etc. Of course they can learn. We can learn as well, but the whole part is just this loop part. It's just, how quickly and how I can make a decision. So it's just very interesting. I really like to see how this will go forward. So it's will be very, very interesting to see the progress of the industry about it, and we will see.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So let's link it to the last. We make a beautiful transition here as well to the last part of the interview, which is called "What's Next," right? And this is we're talking about this automation, and everything. So horizon concepts that Andrew already talked about, this 1 to 3, 1 to 5, 1 to 7. But what's happening on the future? What are the things that you can see over that when we talk about the AI design or anything that can really transform and impact the construction industry as it is today? So what do you think should be like the focus for the future years?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, yeah. I mean, I've covered some of that already, definitely.
Not so difficult, Andrew. Come on, it can never be.
Well, I would say reality capture, I do feel is going to have an impact, and I know that computer vision, I feel, is going to have an impact on that as well. So I think when I talk about as you were showing the slides as well, Enrique, I was thinking, well, the horizons, you could have your own horizons just for BIM, just literally for within the BIM themes and the BIM topics. And, I do think, I'm going to say in the short term, reality capture, I really think it still is something that is going to impact us. And I know that ChatGPT is starting to get, experimented with around the scripting and automation of our, normal tools as well. The things you mentioned there about, using text to design buildings, I love that stuff. I think it's the right thing to be following. I think it might be slightly too early, but it's good that we're doing it. I think when Alexa came out, 2-3 years ago, 4 years ago, and forgive me for not remembering how many years Alexa really has been around, but I started seeing on our AEC blogs and social media around BIM, people controlling the designing of models and the editing of the buttons or the pushing of the buttons of the top of the software. And I won't say the software name but there was software names. There's software that was being manipulated using Alexa. So someone had hacked the hell out of an Alexa to be able to get it to push buttons to do with moving objects, editing objects, bringing up properties, and all that sort of stuff. And I haven't seen it progress since then much, let's say. And so with the example you gave around the ChatGPT, I think it's going to take us a long time. So that, I would argue, is in the 5 to 7 year strategy. Again, the pace that these things move, maybe I'm wrong. And, by year 3 of Horizon 1, actually, it's something we need to really come up with a good plan for. But I see that more on the longer term. I think robotics is definitely, some of the things I'm seeing with robotics is having an impact. And I think and how the design process of BIM, I think, will be impacted at construction stages. Some of the things that I remember from years back, some of the robotic experts saying to me is that the idea that we think that robots are being built to be able to hold a brick and the size of a brick is naive, because the brick is the size of a brick because we can hold the brick. And, it's the sort of weight that we feel comfortable to bricklay. But the idea that robots have to keep, using that same brick for building of walls is a naivety, and we need to consider that they can kind of do things at a much more sort of larger scale, let's say, or even a more precise scale on a small level as well. So I think some of the things I saw in the last 6 months have been very exciting around where that world is going, around some of the centres that I managed to visit. The funny thing is that they did explain, though, that much of the robotics side is going to impact the inside of buildings rather than the outside. They said because of the outside environment and dust and and wind and everything else you can kind of think of that has an impact on mechanical equipment. They said it's very likely we will see those sort of things turning up inside buildings before outside. So I think that again will have a big impact on BIM. Around construction sequencing, it will have an impact in terms of the 4D planning will be impacted by these things. And I think at the same time, there's services there that maybe companies companies can start emerging, or even existing companies like engineering companies can start offering those services to clients and say we can do that. Sequencing of how robotics would be moving around your building as it's being designed. Those are kind of areas I think that are, fair enough. Some of them are in the 5 to 7 year, but in the 1 year, I think reality capture is moving fast. Virtual reality is moving fast. I think the whole metaverse thing is something we need to understand. And I'm surprised at myself that I've managed to get through most of this interview without saying the word digital twin. But I do think, digital
it's already
twin.
old. It's passé, so it's okay. That's nice.
Yeah, that's it. But I do think digital twins, are going to turn up somewhere in relation to and have an impact and an influence and a correlation to BIM. That one I definitely see in the 1 to 3 year. So
is it getting more complicated, Peter? What do you think? Is it more and more wording straight?
No, I think it's I like it. I like the idea. I like the idea of the bricks. Now I finally, after thousands of years of my experience, I understand why the bricks in Poland are bigger than in Britain. In England. So, because we are just having the bigger hands. That's very simple. So that's nothing. But going back to the industry and to the serious, the being serious about the transformation, I think one thing which I think you can take a look at in terms of the technology, I believe it will be really the artificial intelligence, but used to show the way how the buildings and how the constructions or infrastructure will behave in the time. So just I really see that we have the model of today, the new building or new infrastructure coming in, and we have from the model we have the way of the history of the different infrastructures, and we can say tell us how quickly it will just which part of the building, which part of infrastructure, etc., what will just be suffering in terms of the usage, in terms of the time, etc., etc., which I think it can be really quickly developed because we have the models, we know the data, we know the stuff. So I think that will be one of the first use of the artificial intelligence within the construction. So I think it will be much faster because you know what? There are the money behind, right? If you need to replace the pipe in the 10 years or in the 20 years, we will replace in 20 years. So just if somebody tells you how to do it properly, you will do this properly immediately, right? So I think that's it. And I like the idea of, digital twin. I think we already said it's passé. So I think it's good. It's good. In fact, it's coming each 3 years. Digital twin is coming from the different industry to different industries. So it's interesting. No, but it's a good summary. I like the idea of the timing. I really see that we will just get quicker for some of the hard data, which we have the models which are already established. I think it will go faster. For the rest, I have a tendency to agree with you. Yeah, I think it will be really the timing.
Yeah. No, definitely. It's exciting times. It's definitely not an exciting time. Definitely.
Not a boring one. I'm just learning the new stuff each day right now. Wow.
No, I think same. I mean, I think just briefly to touch as well. I think COVID definitely things such as a COVID and a pandemic definitely do accelerate some areas that we didn't think were going to be accelerated, or I would never have considered to accelerate so quickly. That virtual collaboration, that really moved quite quick. I think the day that virtual reality and the concept of a metaverse, kind of a virtual augmented kind of mixed reality maybe, scenario designing, I think the day we can do that in a really good way, I think things will change very quickly and much very quickly into that direction.
Oh my God, different topic, warning here, different topic, it's just...
I'm going to stop with that.
No, but I will say, so bring me 2 more pandemics if they're going to accelerate the construction industry. Let's bring one every couple of years, right? Because we really need to catch up with the waste time.
Don't worry, we will have the one more just coming. So
I was going to say, I don't want to mention that, but there are crises like that accelerated things that you didn't expect to accelerate, but that did. So people are much quicker to make decisions on moving somewhere once those kind of immediate impacts are needed.
Well, Andrew, Peter, I think this sounds as a summary ending of the interview. We really have fun, enjoy the time here. So thank you so much. And very interesting last part of the conversation. BIM strategy, okay, all good as well, but this is more fun for me, talking about the new technologies and how can we really make a change, because Peter is bored to hear about BIM and implementation, so we want to move faster with new stuff, right? So really enjoyed this last part, especially. It was fun to discuss and agree it's exciting times for to do a change, either for good or bad, to do a change, to do something.
Definitely. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you both.
Thank you very much for kind interview. We haven't fight a lot today, so this is good for our view. So guys, thank you very much for being, and really just nice to see you guys really watching us. So thank you, Andrew, for being with us, making sure that you guys who are just watching, just click the buttons, whatever, on the bottom, I don't remember where they are right now, but click on the YouTube subscribe and just be with us. So that's it. Thank you very much, guys.
Right there. Thank you so much. Have a lovely week ahead and talk soon.
Talk to you guys soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.